Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am Michael, and if you clicked on this is the Michael Loves Movies YouTube channel. It's very raw. It's me sitting outside. Looks like there's a fly buzzing around my face. It's as professional as it gets right now. But that's okay. I'm here because I want to be myself. I love movies, in particular horror, and I want to talk about things that I love. So I'm here talking about it. I started off doing a franchise discussion on part one of the sequel timeline, or the Dr. Loomis timeline, or whatever you want to call it. Halloween, Halloween 2, 4, 5, and 6. Going from 78 up to 89. Or no, sorry, up to 95. Yeah, so 17 years. And I just didn't feel like I was done talking about that part, so I'm not actually moving on to the next. I want to get into just some Halloween memories, and memories of me watching these movies. And the last one I got really caught up in the details, and not that that's not interesting, but I might have gotten in the weeds a little bit on that. And I brought a few of my Halloween films here. I have a lot more. I used to have even more than that, but there's a lot of different reasons why I've gotten rid of some over the years. I bought others and all that. So, where do I start? I think I'll start with saying, I'll get into Season of the Witch to start with. So, once again, I'm not including it on my ranking. It's not that I don't like it. Admittedly, I don't like it as much as many of the other ones, because it's not that Michael Myers is all these films are about. There's many other characters and things, but let's be real. I mean, people go to Friday the 13th for Jason. That's why a lot of people don't really like the first one that much, or they dog on Jason Goes to Hell because Jason's not in it, which I just totally disagree with, but okay. The Nightmare films, they don't like the remake because it disrespects Freddy and changes things, and so on and so forth. So, with Halloween 3, I went from, when the first time I watched it, I think I thought that Michael was in it. I was probably young. Who knows what age I was. I don't know, maybe 10 or something. And when he wasn't, I'm sure I probably finished it, because I usually watch every movie to the end, but I don't remember liking it that much. I'm a big repeat viewer. I can watch my favorite movie for the 100th time. I would almost rather watch that than something I know I'm going to hate. And often now, a lot of times, the things we don't have straight to video anymore, because sadly, video stores are gone. Somebody bring them back. Like, come on. Maybe I need to do that. But anyway, the fact that it didn't include Michael, if I'm not going back and rewatching something, I must not have liked it that much. It doesn't mean it was bad, but I come to certain things for a certain experience. If I go to a restaurant that I usually eat pizza at and they're serving fried chicken, I'm going to ask questions. If I eat the fried chicken and it's good, I still might want to order it again, but I'm still probably going to go to that restaurant to eat pizza. When I come to Halloween, I'm coming for Michael Myers and then a few other characters. And in this case, in the sequel timeline, Dr. Loomis. Much more so than, not that I don't love Jamie or anything, but Dr. Loomis and Michael are the core of the series, and always will be, no matter how many sequels they make, because they carried it for a long time. Much more than Laurie Strode even did. So I like the film. I respect what they were doing. I think the reappraisal it's gotten is what's the word I want to use? I wanted to say ridiculous. That's not the right word. It is, I think, overblown. I think it's a very strong course correction in the other direction. That people are so, they're acknowledging in such a strong way how underappreciated it was. Now they're course correcting the other way. I've watched it more since then. I rewatch it every Halloween. I probably watch it a couple times a year. But I don't love it. Like, I started it the other day and then I fell asleep or something. Maybe it was, a lot of times I'll watch a movie at night. Maybe I watched it before I went to bed, and and didn't go back to it and finish it later. I like it. I don't love it. I'm not including it here because I found a really hard time ranking that movie among these. It's such an outlier that it's difficult to take something that's so incredibly different and compare it to all the other movies that feature basically the same kind of story. And so I'm not going to be a hater of it. I'm not going to be a lover of it either. I'm just going to state that I like the movie, but I'm not including it here because, yes, I know it could have been an anthology. If they'd have called it Season of the Witch, it would have done amazing. You have no evidence of that. You say that could have happened, but you're just completely speculating. This isn't 1982, and you don't know what would have happened. So, when I was growing up, my parents were never horror fans. They didn't introduce me to horror films. I remember them being open to Halloween and like dressing up. My mom took me to Walmart. Back when Walmarts used to close. Then they came out with super Walmarts and were open 24/7. And then for some reason in COVID now they close again. This is America. 24/7 is like the thing. You need to bring back super Walmart. But back in the day when Walmart's closed, the first iteration, they would have these costume contests. And my mom took me multiple times and I won. So my mom wasn't like anti-Halloween. We trick-or-treated and we may have even put up decorations. I don't remember. I remember one really cool thing. Right down the road, so I lived at 406 4th Street in Carmi, Illinois. That's where I grew up. And it was like the third house from the end of the block, and the end of the block was Stewart Street. It's one of the three main streets in Carmi. You got Main Street, and then Oak Street, and then Stewart Street that all run east and west. Or is that north and south? Or whatever. Three parallel streets. So like you go to the end of the block and you turn right and you walk down like maybe 2 blocks. And there was these people that did like, they may only did it 2 or 3 times, but this is like in the 90s. I'm young, super into horror. This is in the days of the movies being released still from the big slashers. When I was a kid, so it was exciting. And I was really into Halloween, and they put on a haunted house multiple times there, and it's probably lame and small, but it took up like their whole backyard. And I just remember thinking it was the coolest thing ever. And I think the first time I went, they were playing the Halloween music, and they had a guy dressed up as Michael Myers, and he came out, and he had like a chain or something, and he had just like tin or siding off a house or something, and I remember he was slamming something against it, making a loud noise, and I'll just always remember that. I thought that was so cool. So I've always kind of enjoyed that. My aunt one time pranked us all and told us that there was this old man, I think he was an influential citizen of some kind or some sort of business tycoon, and his grave was this really weird statue of himself. It's kind of odd, but it was literally like a man with like a hat on, like a fedora. And she told us we went out there at midnight, his head would spin around or something. I don't know, just to make us scared. So it wasn't like my family wasn't into spooky things, but it wasn't until my uncle, that fateful day in the summer of 1991, agreed to let us watch Halloween 4 that this opened everything up. And that's why for me, I've told myself I'm going to rewatch Halloween 1 and 2 all the way through again. I don't actually watch them as much. It's not that I don't love them, but since I grew up with the Thorn trilogy, and then H2O is the first one I saw in the theater, and then I have all these other memories as an adult. I don't have memories of Halloween 1 and 2 as much. I honestly, that's odd. I've never thought about that, but I don't actually remember the first time I saw either one of them. It's kind of weird, because I remember 4, 5, and 6 as being pivotal memories. That might be one of the reasons that, as much as I love and respect Halloween 1, I don't put it in as much, or Halloween 2, because I don't have those memories to latch onto in the same way. I saw 4 right away, 5 I saw right away. I don't know if I talked my mom into renting these for me, or if I'd like sneak them. But I remember me and my sister being little and getting her to watch Halloween 5 with me. She was probably terrified. She was 4 years younger than me, so who even knows how young she was when she was watching these. I don't know. We probably shouldn't have been, but I did. That's definitely not my parents. That's all me. So they were great parents, but yeah, I remember watching 4 and 5 right away. I remember watching 3 because I remember it not having Michael Myers and me not latching onto it. 1 and 2, I remember clearly watching them and liking them, but I think it always felt like to me that 4, 5, and 6, because 4 and 5 came out like in my lifetime, and then 6 was released when I was in middle school, and then H2O, the 7th Halloween, was released when I was in high school, and I saw that one in the theater. And then I have memories with the Rob Zombie movies, and then obviously the David Gordon Green trilogy, that I kind of latch onto 4 on even more. And it feels like Halloween 1 and 2 is from my parents' era, and it was. I mean, in 1978, my dad was like 21, and my mom was like 20. And when Halloween 2 came out, it was still 2 years before I was even born, and I'm the eldest child. So a lot of you will say, well, that doesn't matter. And I don't take things, I'm trying to mature as a person and not take something that someone else says is the greatest. Like, these are the first 2 Halloweens, right? This is a copy I got from McKay's in a really cool used like media store where you could also trade in books and things too. It's in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I was spending some time there working this year. And I bought a new copy of Halloween. This is like the Anchor Bay from 2000 DVD. This is not an unboxing video, but still pretty cool. Got a really cool little Michael Myers. And then also bought Halloween 2 because it was $2, and I already own the movie, but we're horror collectors and we're dorks, so we feel obligated to buy every copy of it, even if we've got 10 of them, because that's just what we do. Where was I? Yeah, so these movies came out, they were my parents' era, and so I love them, but I think that I don't always go back to them as much. And I think that feeling like we have to have the original or what's viewed as objectively the best, number one, there's no objectively the best of anything when it comes to art. There's just not. I don't care if it's the Mona Lisa or the Sistine Chapel. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. It is someone's opinion about what they like. The reason that I rank Halloween 4 above the first Halloween is because I genuinely have the best time with it. A lot of that could be nostalgia too. I feel like the acting and the horror, or the fact that it's scary, it's scarier than the first one. I've just always felt that way. And even the portrayal of Michael Myers, people put Nick Castle up on like this huge pedestal. Guys, he called John Carpenter up, they were buddies, and John was like, yeah, you can play the villain, and he asked him how he should do it and this and that, and he told him to just walk. So I have to put him up on Mount Rushmore because he just knows how to walk. I'm not saying I don't respect it, but it wasn't like he went to some huge, place like Kane Hodder goes, where he's really trying to portray the character a certain way and thinking it out. I just don't see it that way. I would never put him, I just don't put it on the same level, because the guy wasn't doing anything other than just being there. I don't know. Dick Warlock isn't necessarily my favorite portrayal in Halloween 2 either, but Dick was doing more with the character than Nick was. A lot of, I think, him looking good in the first Halloween is simply John Carpenter's direction and his ability to shoot, and him telling him what to do and where to stand. It's all brilliant. It's great. It's a great movie. Donna Pleasance in this sequel timeline is as important as Michael Myers. Everything in the first movie, if you removed Donna Pleasance's, well, if you remove the music, that makes it not scary. I talked about that in the last video, about how John Carpenter showed it to someone, and without the music it wasn't scary. And if you removed Dr. Loomis and all his exposition and the things he's saying about Michael, you just have a guy who's like medium build. I mean, he's not big or imposing in any way. Was he like 5'10", 180 pounds, or 160 pounds or something? Walking around in a white mask. You know, he killed one person 15 years before that, and one other person that no one in Haddonfield even knew about, because it's not like people in Haddonfield knew that the mechanic had been killed in the bushes somewhere in Illinois. And I say Illinois because if you guys didn't know this, there's never been a single Halloween movie that has had one frame shot in Illinois. I'm in Illinois right now. This is where I live. It's one of the reasons that Halloween 4 resonated so much with me. The main character, the little girl, was 8. And I was 8 when I watched it. She's in a small town in Illinois. There's like, you know, these country-looking farms and stuff. I mean, I can relate to that. My grandpa was a farmer when I was a kid, and all of that resonated. Had some pretty unique nightmares back in the day with Michael Myers chasing me near a cornfield. Would be a great chase scene in a movie, actually, but yeah. So the second Halloween, when I was a kid, I think I remember thinking that the second Halloween was actually scarier than the first. And it definitely has more of a brutal sense to it, because Friday the 13th, the first 2 had been released at that point, and it was almost like, it's interesting that, you know, Friday the 13th blatantly ripped off Halloween, and then Halloween blatantly rips off Friday the 13th, or at least becomes more graphic because they felt like they had to in the second film, which John Carpenter notoriously didn't even want to make, right? You know, I completely disagree that it's an abomination and a horrible film. I don't agree with that at all. I do think that it's a movie that clearly didn't have much to do. Halloween 2 reminds me so much of Friday the 13th Part 3. It's clear that they have like some ideas for how to start it, and in the middle it's just kind of, well, here we are at a cabin with a barn, or here we are at a hospital, and then we kind of know how we need to end it. And Halloween 2, the intention was, let's show him frying like a piece of chicken on the ground so he can never come back. Well, this is horror, they'll always come back. And then I didn't really have, when I was a kid, you know, lots of kids like watching scary movies, but I don't remember having like a pal to like watch them with. Like, I became a pretty big fan right away. I don't know if I would have talked about it that much openly because it wasn't cool. Freddy and Jason were pretty cool. People never, I don't know why Michael didn't resonate as much. I think because in the 80s, like, you get Michael in 81, then you go 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, and most of 88, almost about 7 years without Michael Myers. So through the 80s, when you get Jason 8 times, you get Freddy 5 times. You get Freddy 5 times in like 6 years. Yeah, you did get Freddy 5 times in 6 years, because the only time there wasn't a Nightmare movie, the first one came out in 84, and 5 came out in 89. The only year without one was 86. The only year that didn't have one. And the only 2 years that didn't have Friday the 13th was 83 and 87. And so Michael went to the, kind of went to the background. So a lot of people, like, as far as in the cultural consciousness, I think Jason and Freddy definitely permeated more of the culture. And oddly enough, it's kind of weird when you look back on it. Freddy was like a child murderer, and he became, I remember having like a little plastic Freddy glove, and I mean, because it became so permeated the culture that it was not, I mean, they sold them at Walmart and stuff. I mean, I lived in a little bitty small town, guys. It wasn't like I got out a lot. I went to the lake sometimes in Kentucky. You know, we went on vacation once a year to Florida, and then most of my life was lived in a small town in Illinois. And I don't mean a suburb. Haddonfield is not a suburb. Haddonfield is a small town. There's a difference. It drives me crazy when people on YouTube are like, it's almost like city, if you ever see a map, and then everything else is just suburb. No, suburbs is right on the outside of the city, and then everything past that is a small town. Rural, R-U-R-A-L. Anyway, That one just drives me crazy. Although in the movies there's no continuity about where Smith's Grove is, because there's clearly distance being portrayed in the first Halloween between Smith's Grove and Haddonfield. There's like this long road trip he has to go on. But then when you watch the David Gordon Green trilogy, it says clearly in Halloween 2 that Michael Myers escaped from the Smith's Grove, Warren County Sanitarium. Smith's Grove in Warren County. And they're supposed to be far apart. But in David Gordon Green's trilogy, if you pay attention, you look at Hawkins's patch, it says Warren County. So now we're supposed to believe that Warren County, that Smith's Grove and Haddonfield are in the same county. Maybe the county is just like 400 miles long. I don't know. It'd be a big county. No, that's just a continuity error because people don't pay close enough attention. It's one thing I do respect about Daniel Farrance. The man paid a lot of attention. And so I discussed a lot last time about the reason Halloween 4 became the way it was. John Carpenter wanted to work on it, so did Deborah Hill, but they wanted to do like because they had to have Michael Myers dead. They just didn't want to have anything to do with the character. I don't know why. John Carpenter it probably would have saved his career, because he became just totally against the character, and then does Season of the Witch. I think he was convinced that just the Halloween hook and his ability to write different stories would have worked. And maybe it would have, but by then people in the 80s had latched on to a certain villain, and that tends to happen. I mean, we do that in all movies. Think about this. There is, James Bond, and we latch on to certain characters, and those characters become the crux of the story most of the time. I just watched the new Insidious, the Elise character, because she is the further, yes, in that, that's kind of the Michael Myers element, but the character, she's like the Dr. Loomis. She's the thing that holds the whole franchise together. Her character, if she wasn't there, I don't know that people would want to watch the movie, because that's really what they go to see, is her and her activity and her part of the story is a big reason why people watch those movies. And it's just not the same with with someone else. It wouldn't be the same. And so that's the one thing that connects all these movies together. This is not all the copies I have, but you got the first Halloween, and then 2. I don't have 3 here, although I do have a copy of it. I have 2 copies of it at least. This is my 4K of 4, which is damaged and broken because I moved too much, and it happens. So it's not in perfect condition, but there it is. I'm here for the art, not necessarily the perfection, right? I don't think I've even watched this all the way through, believe it or not. And then this is a cool little DiviMax 4 and 5, which is really fun. I've bought this multiple times. And then I don't have my regular 6. I have a 6 on DVD, or Curse on DVD, and then I have it as part of the set. And then here's the producer's cut, which I used to have a real crappy VHS copy of it from the 90s, which I don't have anymore. But as the producer's cut, really don't like that, but there it is. And what else do I have to say about these? 4 brought the series back. 5 feel like people feel like that tanked it, and then 6. And so really the point of this is me just kind of talking through this, and I'm wrestling with how I'm going to rank these, because I want to do a ranking, but I didn't feel right about doing a ranking until I did some franchise discussions, because I love this franchise so much. I don't just want to do a ranking. I want to have time to sit and talk about it. I had such a fun time seeing 4 and 5, and they had just been released. And VHS took a while to come out, so the VHS of 4, I don't think it even came out until after 5 was released. You can fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure. And then the VHS of 5 would have been released maybe 6 months before I saw 4. So it was, new. That's, stuff back then that wasn't instantaneous. Remember, no internet, guys. New didn't mean it had to be 5 seconds ago. New could actually have been a few months. Our definition of things was different back then. We actually had a little bit of patience. We don't have patience anymore. Everything has to be right now. And then 6 coming out, I distinctly remember seeing the preview on the VHS, being so excited. Once again, not being able to see it in the theater. My parents didn't go to the movies a lot, and certainly were not going to take me to see a horror film, and probably would have had a whole lot of reasons why that I don't agree with, but that is what it is. To each their own. We're all different. But then I saw 6 when it came out on VHS, and I just remember, the funny thing is on these, I think I'm just so forgiving of a lot of it, because I'm not sitting there as a 13-year-old. I'm sitting there thinking of, Michael Myers scared me so much in 4 and in 5. I was just terrified of the character. He almost felt like a ghost-like figure, like a specter. Like in 4, he's just like going around the town stealthily, like taking out the power and like sneaking into cop cars and these kinds of things. And in 5 he disappears, and in 6 he's in this like basement tunnels, and he's sneaking around barns, and he's almost like he appears and then he disappears, almost, it appears to. I think that's one of the reasons I like those so much. Even more so than the first, to me, it felt like in 4 and 6 in particular, he was like a ghost. He didn't even feel much like a man. So it's probably one of the reasons I had a lot of problem with Halloween Ends. It became just, you're just a man in a Halloween mask. There has to be something more going on. Even if you say the evil itself is what kept him alive and the body is human, but that the evil inside of him makes him not human. So if that's the case, then he's both, right? He's both human and supernatural. But this timeline, unfortunately, ends on a cliffhanger. At the end, we get Paul Rudd playing Tommy Doyle, the boy from that Laurie was babysitting in the first, back in 1978. Him, and then Kara Strode, who's, I guess would somehow be Michael's cousin or something. It's never fully explained. Her son, and then the baby that's Jamie's baby, leaving, and then Dr. Loomis presumably gets killed by Michael. And so that timeline unfortunately ends, and we never got to see where it went. The movie didn't do well. It did better than 5, but 5 was the lowest grossing movie in the franchise. It was made for like $5 million, and it made, I think, like 11.7. Even back then, with not as much marketing costs, and with Trancas releasing it themselves, it didn't make much money. So that's why the franchise went dormant from 89 and didn't start back until 95. Part of it was because the story had been written into a corner with a lot of like the Thorn tattoo and all the Man in Black and all these weird things that weren't explained. Jamie disappearing, where does she go? Where's Michael? But also because the movie, 2 movies in a row did not do well. Halloween's got a bad problem with like coming out of the gate really, really hot. I think a lot of franchises have this problem. They come out of the gate really, really hot, and then they can kind of drop off. Spider-Man right now is just like this total Spider-Man, and then some certain animated movies are kind of a phenomenon. They're an exception that they'll do better rather than worse, and that's just not common. Like things like Obsession, for example, are completely uncommon for a movie to start here and then go up and up and up, and then barely come down and then just kind of sustain over a long time. I mean, a total fluke. Halloween was much more of a normal thing where, okay, these 2 movies, 5 and 6, did not do as well, so it went dormant for quite some time after that. And unfortunately, Donald Pleasence passed away before the reshoots were even done, and so he's cobbled together in the movie. I think they edited it together good enough to where it looked like he was involved, and it always worked for me fine. And he was so old and clearly like not in good health at the time that it never really bothered me the way they used him in 6. It didn't. He still got to give his great speech with Deborah at the house, which I thought was awesome. And so this was, even if no other Halloween movies had ever been made, as much as I love H2O and I have fond memories of that, and even the new movies, I honestly could be fine with there being the first 6 and there never being another one. I would actually be okay with that. Just because I think these movies tell so many different versions of Michael's story. You have the first one by itself that you can, he's just pure evil. Then, of course, the sister angle is brought in Halloween 2. And the rest of them are based upon that. So there's enough different, and then you have enough different stories that were told in that time frame that I think you wouldn't have needed anything else. But there are others, and in the next part of this series, I'm finally going to move on and talk about Halloween H2O, Resurrection, and the 2 Rob Zombie films, which I also love dearly. In this franchise, really the only one that I don't like at all is Resurrection. I'm sure it'll be last on my ranking. I used to be really hard on Halloween Ends, and I'm even coming around on it quite a bit, because what I like about Halloween is it gives me different versions of the character of Michael. I get different aspects to him. Like here, his eyes are, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes, you probably should never be able to see his eyes. In H2O, you see his eyes way too much. Resurrection, I feel like Ends, the reason I hated it so much is there was a lot, well, for one, it was false marketing, but there was a lot of disrespect to the character. But then, even then, now that I've watched the trilogy more, and I began to see more of the intent and try to understand more what they were doing and use the logic. I want to even do a podcast called Movie Logic, and I want to write down all the logic of the movie and genuinely go into the movie and say, okay, I'm going to use this logic of this movie as I step into watching it, and just see if that changes the experience at all. And I think because I've been able to see a bit of the logic of Halloween Kills and Ends, that's changed my opinion of those a bit. Resurrection, I have given it many chances. Seriously, 10 probably, or 15 over the years, and Michael Myers does not ever need to be made into a joke. You can make Jason Voorhees into a joke, because Jason is a lesser character, but you don't do that to Michael Myers. I don't like that at all. So that's the end of this discussion. I'll be back with part 3, talking about Rob Zombie and reboots and resurrections and retcons next time. Thanks for tuning in. Happy Halloween, even though it's August.